a fleeing nation trapped. Around 3,000 years ago, at the edge of the Sea of Reeds, Moses leads the Israelites with the Egyptian army closing in. What you are about to see is the miraculous deliverance that defines Israel's identity. This is the real story. Moses is an 80-year-old leader who once lived in Pharaoh's house and now speaks for God. He bears the burden of guiding a frightened people toward the promised freedom. His staff is the visible sign of God's presence with him. The Israelites are former slaves, many exhausted, terrified, and hopeful all at once. They move as families with meager possessions, wondering if the promises their fathers trusted will save them now. Their fear is raw and palpable. Pharaoh's army is a professional force of charioteers and infantry, furious at losing slaves and determined to recover them. Their armor, horses, and chariots make them seem unstoppable to a people who have never faced such power. As the people depart Egypt, the dust of the chariots hangs on the road behind them. In that moment, fear tightens the camp because Pharaoh changes his mind and sends his army. The Israelites realize they are pursued and have nowhere safe to hide. When they reach the shore, the sea stretches before them and Pharaoh's chariots thunder close behind. In that instant, panic sweeps the camp. The people cry out, asking why Moses brought them into the wilderness to die. Their faith falters under the weight of imminent death. In that moment, Moses tells them, "Stand firm and see the deliverance of the Lord." He speaks not as a lone hero, but as God's mouthpiece, assuring the people that God will fight for them. This reassurance is theological. God keeps covenant and acts for his people. As the Israelis watch in fear, Moses receives a direct command: lift your staff and stretch out your hand over the sea. This is not a general prayer, but an action ordered by God. The staff becomes the instrument through which the divine rescue will be enacted. At Moses' command, the sky answers. A strong east wind rises all night. In that same night, the wind drives the sea back. The wind is the physical mechanism God uses in this miracle, showing how divine power can operate through natural means. When morning comes, the sea stands as a wall on both sides, and a dry path appears. In that quiet hour, the impossible is visible. Water held back like two rocks, while sand and seaweed lie exposed. The people see God's command made manifest in powerful, visible form. As the people enter the path, fear turns to cautious wonder. The old, the young, animals, and wagons all begin to cross. This crossing is an act of trust. They obey Moses' word and step into danger because they now trust that God is leading them to safety. But before the crossing ends, Pharaoh's army plunges onto the sea floor in pursuit. They do not see divine intent. They see only the chance to recover slaves and vengeance. Their judgment is human pride, mistaking opportunity for safety in the face of the divine. As the last of the Israelites step safely off the path, the waters return with sudden force. In that instant, the sea collapses on the chariots and horsemen. What followed is a dramatic reversal. The instruments of oppression are overwhelmed by the very power that saved the oppressed. When the waters settle, the shore is littered with wreckage and silence. In that stillness, the people respond with awe and worship. They recognize that God has acted decisively. This moment becomes the founding memory that defines them as a people rescued by God. In that aftermath, the people burst into song led by the women. They sing of God's strength and triumphant power. This is not mere celebration. It is a theological confession that the Lord is sovereign and that history itself can serve as worship when God intervenes in human affairs. Days pass, and then the people recount the meaning. This deliverance proves God's faithfulness to the covenant He made with their ancestors. The miracle is not only escape, it confirms that God remembers promises and acts on behalf of those He has chosen. But as days go by, some fear returns and questions arise about how to live in freedom. The crossing solves immediate danger, but also tests the people's faith. Will they trust God for provision, leadership, and future obedience now that they are no longer slaves? When the people remember this moment, they do more than recall a miracle. They form an identity. The crossing becomes the central story that defines them as a people saved by God, shaping their law, worship, and memory for generations to come. Years later, elders will tell their children how God saved them. In that retelling, the crossing is proclaimed in festivals and songs. The event becomes theology made memory, a teaching that God rescues, judges, and brings His people into a new future. Finally, this chapter is recorded so future generations remember that God acts in history to free and to judge. Exodus 14 becomes a theological anchor for later writings, reminding readers that the same God who parted waters remains sovereign over nations. In the end, the story shows both human responsibility and divine power. Moses acts in obedience, the people obey and step forward, and God provides the means of salvation. The miracle depends on both trust and divine action intertwined. As the narrative closes, the text presses an enduring question. Will those who are saved remember to live as a people forged by deliverance? The crossing calls every generation to remember the God who saves and to live accordingly. When morning comes again, the camp prepares to move toward the wilderness, and the covenant still ahead. The sea behind them becomes a sign. God rescues and sends His people forward into a new calling. Their journey continues under divine guidance. The lesson of Exodus chapter 14 is clear. God rescues His people to fulfill covenant promises and to shape a communal identity of trust and remembrance. Deliverance is both divine action and a summons to faithful living. If this story moved you, like the video, subscribe to the channel, and tap the bell so you do not miss the next one.